So the first question comes from our friend Dave Olson. My friend anyway, Dave's been a stalwart and he's always got great things to say and he's charming and lovely fellow. Dave Olson says, your thoughts on people who drive in the left lane slower than the flow of the other traffic. That was I meant to say down near the bottom of the questions, but I moved it to the top. I think if I was the president of the United States, I would allocate a fair amount of money from our Department of Transportation funds. And what I would do is I would use the money and I would hire 4.5 million Germans to come to America to teach us how to drive. That's what I would do. I would hire 4 or 5 million Germans and give them upscale accommodations in the extended stay Marriott of their choice, and I'd just have them on the road, and I'd just teach them. I'd pay them real money to teach us how to drive. By now that when it comes to America, I'm a big fan of this country, and there's much about Europe I don't like. But I'll say this about the Germans: my God, those people know how to drive, and they don't tolerate bad driving. I think honestly. Yeah, Bill Rant Alert says Brent Cates, and he's right. If I was a dictator, this is the only thing I would actually impose the death penalty for. Would be murder, rape, and consistently being passed on the right. I don't know why this is so hard to figure out, and I live in Los Angeles where the traffic is horrific, and even in the congested parts, look, there comes a point when the congestion is so great that lane discrimination doesn't help you. But most of the time, when you are going down the freeway, these blockages are due to some idiot in the left lane just tooling along. It's like, you got your lane, I got my lane. If I get passed by the right on the right, I almost get ill. It's like that's my own fault. I should not have been passed on the right. I should have moved over. And what we do when we drive, when you drive the way you fly, which is competently, presumably, you are in the farthest most right lane, and then you only go one lane to the left to get past who you need to get past, and then you get back over to the right again. Which, by the way, I'm fully convinced of this, has the unintended but extremely beneficial side effect of getting you far fewer speeding tickets. Far fewer. I think I remember when I was a kid, when I was getting tickets like every day, I read that it's something like 94% of all the speeding tickets written in this country are written in the far left lane. It's like 94%. So I'm always in the far right lane, and if I have to pass somebody, I get to the left and I get back over to the right. And honestly, on a drive from Los Angeles to San Diego, this is the one thing that consistently makes me crazy. Just genuinely makes me crazy, because this is the one thing that is so easy to fix and is so. I think the thing about it is it's the cluelessness of it. I guess it's kind of an interesting thing to lead into. I actually have had people working for me. God knows I've worked for other people for most of my life. But when I have people working for me, I am extraordinarily tolerant of mistakes. I really am not trying to brag here. I'm just telling you the truth. If people make a mistake, I say, Bill, I screwed up. I'm sorry. I'm with them forever. I make 100 mistakes a day. But the things that I don't tolerate are I do not suffer fools gladly in the degree of incompetence. If somebody makes a mistake, I want them to admit they made a mistake, and I want them to say, okay, so I'll try not to do this again. It's the cluelessness of it. It's the cluelessness of a guy who's in the right lane, and let's say it's a 60-mile-an-hour zone, or 65, and there's somebody in the left lane doing 65, and they're both doing 65 together, and they're side by side for 20 miles, and the guy in the right lane is not doing anything wrong, but the guy in the left lane is. He's got a line of people behind him, and he just either doesn't notice or doesn't care. And in either one of those cases, that's where vehicle-mounted rocket-propelled grenades begin to have a use, I think. There was a Steve Jackson game, a role-playing game called Car Wars, which I never played because I just never really got into it. But the whole idea was you got a chance to spend your money on armoring up and ammoing up your car, and it was just kind of a Mad Max sort of world where you just kind of drove around and the car was the weapon. Had that fantasy a few times driving through these streets, and it's not just in LA, it's not just in California. You see it everywhere across the country. People just tooling along in the left lane with a line of people 4 miles behind them, and they just da 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 da. And I don't know what to make of it. If they know what they're doing, then they're being dicks. If they don't know what they're doing, then they probably shouldn't be on the road, because it's a situational awareness thing. If you're not aware of the fact that there are cars right behind you and cars back to the horizon, you probably shouldn't be on the road. When I get through traffic, when I'm moving through traffic, I'm about 6 or 7 seconds ahead of the car. It's the same thing in aviation, and what that really means is, when I'm really trying to make time on the freeway, we have 5-6 lanes each way here on the 405, and it's constantly in motion. And it's going to turn into the car driver episode. Well, why not? We never covered this before. If I'm moving, first of all, for my safety, for my personal safety, I like to be moving faster than the traffic, and the reason is, if I'm moving faster than the traffic, then all the changes are in front of me, not behind me. I can be aware of them. I don't want people coming up, zipping past me. When I make a lane change and I'm moving faster than the traffic, I'm moving into a position. I'm not moving over, waiting to get rear-ended by somebody else. Whenever I make a lane change, I do a head check. I was taught that in high school, in driver's ed. I check the mirrors, and then I do a head check. Can't tell you how many times that saved me because of the blind spot. And the Camaro has a real bad blind spot, to be honest with you. But I'm aware of what's going on in the mirror, and mostly I'm 4, 5, 6 seconds ahead of the car, which means that I'm looking at where I expect that car to be in 5 or 6 seconds, and all the time I am constantly doing what I do when I fly my airplane. Where am I going to go if things go south? I was flying back from French Valley last night. It was about an hour, Temecula, back to Van Nuys, and without... I didn't want to be dealing with air traffic control. And so you've got a lot of airspace you have to worry about. You have to kind of fly underneath the Class Bravo. I'm getting to a point here, believe it or not. Had to fly underneath the incoming jets for LAX. And it was great. I was just so aware. You're like, okay, I've got in 4 miles, I got to be under 2,500 feet. Where's the nearest traffic? Are there any airplanes around me? I'm like, you're aware, you're switched on, you're looking around, you've got some situational awareness going, you're ahead of the airplane. And certainly in traffic, it's the same thing. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. Last night, on the way down and on the way back, especially at nighttime, it's like, where am I going to go if it gets quiet in here? I don't want to be thinking about it once it gets quiet. I want to constantly be aware of what I'm going to do if the engine fails on the airplane. I do it all the time. It's how I fly. I've never known how not to fly that way. I'm a glider pilot. Gliders, you don't get to go where you want to go. Gliders are always thinking about, well, I'm going to run out of lift maybe, or where am I going to go? So it's a great, great, great thing to do. So on the freeway, I actually am trying to keep myself 4, 5, 6 seconds ahead of the car, watching what the traffic is doing, and always trying to remember, or at least keep in mind, if this guy cuts me off, I got a left lane here, or I've got a shoulder here, or I can go here, I can decelerate, whatever. You can learn how to do that, and it may sound a little more complicated than it needs to be, but when I'm trying to move through traffic, that's what I do. If I'm having a conversation, I'll just get in the number 1 lane or the number 2 lane because everybody's merging in the number 1 lane, and I'll just sit and talk, and I'm not worried about it. But if I'm moving, that's what I do. So yes, I would hire 4 million Germans, 5 million Germans, pay them top dollar, come over here, teach us how to drive. It's a disgrace. I really think it's a disgrace. And I've heard, I've never been to Germany, but I've heard on the Autobahn, if somebody's coming up on you and you're in the left lane, they will blow their horns and flash the lights and get right on your bumper, and I don't blame them. I don't blame them. And the final thing I'll say about this is, given the traffic situations and given the amount of trouble it causes, it's so simple and it's safer. It's safer. It's just safer. If you were just aware of it, just do it. One of the nice things, too, I did a lot of driving for a while on the interstates. And one of the nice things, that's just a nice feeling for me, is I love it when if you are making a lane change in front of a truck, and you give them a signal, and you give them enough time, and you do a lane change in front of a truck that gets the truck to give you a little flash of the lights. It's like it's an upward cycle. It's like, you're courteous and professional. I'm courteous and professional. Thank you very much. You're welcome. Whenever I get a trucker, whenever I make a move or a lane change in front of a truck, or I give him enough room, or whatever the case may be, and I always get that little flash of the lights, it's like his way of saying, hey, thanks, man, for not, for having enough of the game together to not scare me out of my wits, because they're on the road all the time, those professionals, and it's important to me to be as professional as I can be. And the stakes are high here. You're moving at 70 miles an hour. You can hurt yourself at that speed. So I take driving and flying very seriously. Some things I don't take so seriously, but those two things I do. And moving on.